welcome to the March flower of the month. And this month, as you can tell again from the title, is the blue cornflower. And this guy is made from one punch and just a couple little die cuts. Very simple flower. I have used the modern label punch from Stampin Up, and I did check their website and it is still available. So I used this punch for the petals. You see the little black pieces too. I use the Prima Donna Petals from Die-namics, and I just used this one die from the whole set here. I just used this die. I cut 3 of these. You could cut cardstock, and it's 65-pound weight. You could probably use 80, but 65 worked the best for me. And I punch upside down so I can get the most out of my papers. That's why I'm doing it this way. But you punch, so I want you to punch, I'll say 12 to 13 petals. As you've seen before in some of my other videos, I like to use a few extra petals in case I tear them. I have a backup that way. And forgive me, but normally I don't care if I get ink on my hands, but I am going out after this video, and I've been making these flowers, and I look like an alien with these blue hands. So, because it does get on your fingers. So for the petals, I have a couple of colors. What I did is, the majority of it is this Distress Ink Faded Jeans for this. And if you wanted to, you could use a blue cardstock. I liked the real bright, rich color that I got by adding a couple of colors together with this to make that cornflower color blue. So that's why I'm using white. But choose blue and then maybe do this over the top of a blue if you'd like to do that. So what I do, and then you do it for every petal, I just take the Ink Essentials that Ranger has, and I just ink this up. And I'm not pressing really hard, and I do both sides. Oh, I know I'm going to get ink on this other hand. And what I do is let it dry just a little bit, but not too much. Just so it's still a little damp. The Distress Ink is a nice ink because you can actually mold the petals, and you'll see what I mean in a minute. You can almost mold the petals by using this when you're putting a few coats of ink on. That way you're not using the molding mat or any extra tools for doing that. So, well, what I'll do now is do all 13 of these petals. And then the next step that we're going to do, and I don't want you guys to get nervous about this, we're going to paint. So, it's not as hard as it sounds. Get yourself a little bit of water and get yourself... I'm using, I think it's a number 2. Yes, this is a number 2. It's just a liner brush. It's just, I got it at Joann's in one of those sets of brushes that you can get. And it's not that big of a painting project. But what I do, seeing that I don't have the re-inker, if you had the re-inker, and I hope I don't give you glare here, sorry guys. If you had the re-inker, you could just put a drop or 2 on here. Seeing I don't, I'm going to take the pad and just push it on here a little bit and get some water on my brush and just kind of mix it around. You're making it very thin. You can probably tell how thin that color is. It's not heavy. And what I'm going to do is I want to put veins coming through. These are the outside edges of the petals for this flower. Let me move this over a little bit after I inked it. You guys can see a little bit better. Try to do it this way. So you're going to put your veins coming this way and then also this way. And do it very random. Don't worry about it. You just want to make sure they come from the outside in. So I start out just pulling it down 3 separate times. And you can probably tell that it's a reasonably thin, transparent, really. And that's why I like the Distress Ink. If you don't want to do this part, you want to use a pen, that's fine too. But I'm just showing you how I did it. And then I just kind of go on the side, and you can see that when it dries, it does look like veins. And it's going to be really subtle. Let me get one of the finished flowers here again. You can see those veins in there, but it's not jumping out at you. It's just supposed to look real natural. Flip it around. And then again on the other side. And I'm just like slapping it on. I'm not worrying about it being special. And especially perfect, I should say. And I'm not doing anything to the middle because that's going to be covered up. If you want to go right down through, go ahead. But you're not going to see this middle part too much except for at the end and the top petals. So now I don't put the veins on the back because I don't feel that it shows that much. But on the front, then what you're going to come through with some scissors. And you're just going to snip up in between these two indentations here, and you get 3 separate pieces. And I go into where I stopped with the veining. And that's all you do for all of them. So you've got 3 petals, 3 separate little petals here, and 3 separate little petals here. Okay? Hopefully you're following me on that. And this is when it gets messy with getting your hands all blue. So you'll see why I'm wearing the glove. So now that this is reasonably dry, I'm going back in for another coat. As you can tell, these have a little bit more dimension to them because I've added another coat, and then I've added a deep purplish blue chalk, and I'll show you that on the next step. Come through and just separate these. Let this go its own way. You can do it laying down, but I kind of like holding it. That way you don't get an even application, and that's where you get that lighter, darker ink application. I like to get it on the edges because I don't want any of that white cardstock showing. Flip it over and do the other side. And while you're doing this, you're also wetting the paper somewhat. And like I said, if you go this way, you're actually molding it right now. Cornflowers are kind of crinkled. Some of their petals are up, and we'll crinkle them at the end. But if they get wrinkled like that, or you mess them up and you think, oh shoot, I messed this up, I can't use it, that's what you want. So don't be really specific with it. Don't worry. They really aren't going to tear on you. I've not had one tear yet. So that's pretty much the final look with the blue that you're looking for. A little bit, you can put a little bit more on the back, but like I said, it's not going to show that much. I also wanted to mention I used the 1-inch circle punch. Also, this one is a Stampin' Up one, but and I'm going to ink this because this is what we're going to start our petals out on at the bottom. This is like our base. The reason I'm working on white paper is so you guys can see better, and I have to tell you, I've been working on that Surface Saver matte system that I got from McGill, and it holds all the papers nice and flat, so you don't have to sit there and hold it. I can just ink right on it. The problem is, for video purposes, it has too much glare, so that is kind of a negative. I'll be doing a review on that, how I've been feeling about the matte, but I really wish it wasn't shiny because I really wanted to use that. Then I'm not having so much of this ink here and you don't have so much trouble seeing. Anyway, so that's going to be the base. I'll set that aside. Okay, now I brought out Old School for this one because I didn't have an ink that was exactly the color that I wanted. And I don't know if you guys remember these. This is truly the first thing I purchased when I got into scrapbooking. It is that old. It's probably like 12, 15 years old. And I'm going to use this color right here. And I'm going to just use a sponge dauber. And again, I'm going to, not a lot of it, just throughout. And you can tell, move this paper over so it's a little easier for you to, you can tell that I've added some interest by adding a little bit more of a purplish blue tint to that color. That's the look that I'm going for. I don't necessarily do it on the back, but I do want to do most of it in the middle. On a real cornflower, it is dark in the center here. It's almost a blackish purple. And by the time you put the center stamens in and then the little black parts of the sepals, that you're going to see that this would be best if it's made darker. And so that's how you get that subtle look. You see how unimportant the perfection of the veining is now when you see that this petal is done. Alright, so for the first layer, you're going to use 3 petals. So grab 3 of your petals. The rest we can set aside here for a little bit. And you're going to use liquid glue, like I always do. Put it, I'm still using up this bottle. It just keeps on giving. So you're going to place that straight across on there. I suppose I can take this glove off now. There you go. And then the next 2 layers we're going to make an X, just like that. So I found, I just flip mine over. You can certainly put the glue on here if you want. So I make this go here. And basically I'm trying to center the distance on each side. So you want it to be reasonably centered. I apologize if you hear that dog barking. It is my neighbor's dog, and they never do anything. He barks all day long, all night long. I love dogs, but this guy is just, he needs some exercise. They just don't do anything with him. It's unfortunate. Alright, there's your first layer. Then you need 3 more, and then we're going to alternate those layers to where it's going to be pivoted into the empty spots. So there's nothing here, so that's where we want the next set. And you layer 3 more. That's what it should look like for now. And you can see I'm a little bit off here. It doesn't matter. It's not perfectly centered as you start angling. Sometimes you kind of go over. It doesn't matter because it's all going to get scrunched up in just a few minutes. Alright, once this glue is dry, this is just a total of 6 layers here. I just take my fingers and kind of just pinch all around the edge. And you can see how they kind of look like a cornflower. When they grow, they're not perfect. They're kind of like a daisy with that look. And if you do this and the ink is still wet, they'll really crinkle up. But that's the look that you want. So there's the first 6 petal layers. Total of 6 together. Alright, now I take 3 of these petals and I cut them in half. And if you want to use all 6, you certainly may, but I like an odd number, so I'm only going to use 5 of these petals. And what I do now is I will scrunch this first, just so I can get an idea, and I kind of push it up. Now at this stage of the game, you can take your molding mat if you desire, and you can use the 6mm ball on the molding tool and press down here so that this curls up a little bit. So I will do that, but I've done the other ones without. Just wanted to show you both ways, but I crinkle it first. And I'm going to press. I'm not really going in a circular motion. I'm just pressing because I really just want this to cup up. And we'll do that to the rest of them. now I'm going to take a little glue here. I'm going to place these petals in the center, and I will move them in a little bit, so kind of eyeball how you want these to go in. And let me bring in one that's already done. You can see that you're stepping them in a little bit toward the center. If you have a little bit of trouble with the placement when you're cutting these in half, let me get the other half here. When you're cutting these in half, you can trim this a little smaller. You could actually, for example, you could trim these a little bit shorter in here and make this waist, but I don't have a problem using them this way. And then you're gonna go right here, and then we're gonna do two this way. So they're placing them in the center, kind of in the thirds. Or if you were to think about a letter, it would be like a Y. So this is the second petal. First one's at the bottom of the Y. The left one's the left side of the Y, and the right one would be the right side, obviously. And then I just take one, and this is why I said you can put 6 in if you'd like, because there is room for 6. Then I put the next one there, and then wherever you think it looks like it needs an extra petal, pop it in there. So I'm going to just set it right dab in the middle almost. And like I said, add that 6th little half, that other half, if you think your flower's needing a little bit extra petals, a little extra room, a little extra shape. Okay, so that's where you're at with that stage. So I'm going to set that aside. I want that to dry. And we come back in afterwards and still scrunch it and move it. You can pull it back out. You scrunch it up more. They're all movable, as you've seen me do many times in my other flower videos. Same idea. So I'm going to set that aside for a minute. Now I am going to take this mat and those 3 little center stamens that I die cut out. This is from a deep purple cardstock, and this was a Stampin' Up Concord Crush cardstock that I had sitting around. And what I like to do, actually I should have, I think there's probably a little bit of ink still on here from that purple. I did put a little bit of chalk on here for dimension. It's not that noticeable, so if you want to skip this step, no problem with that. I've also taken Elegant Eggplant, their ink, and on some of them I've lightly put that on. That really shows up once it's dry. So either the chalk or the ink. And then I'm just going to set these on the mat. I'll bring that into your view here. And all I do is, again, the 5mm end, I'm just kind of pushing and pushing down on those 3. And then what I'm going to do is I take a paper piercer and I punch in the middle. I keep that on, I keep that on the paper piercer. Go through the next one in the center, stack it on there, and then again. Now, you can glue these together if you'd like. I have left them unglued because I like to be able to spin them around and move them when I'm doing my final molding. Now, to make this inside piece here, I used some black embroidery floss. So you're going to need a tapestry needle with a large eye, and you're going to need some black embroidery floss. And what I do is cut about, I think it was like 3 inches, yeah, about 3 inches. We'll be trimming at the end, but I cut 3 pieces 3 inches long. Now you want to take one of the pieces of floss, thread it through. You can try to do all 3 at one time, but it's a little tough to get them through. So I found if I just do one at a time, it's easier. Stack them on top of each other and then just pull that needle through. You can unthread it for a minute, and then what I like to do is glue the tail at the bottom. So put a little bit of glue here. And I'm going to bend it around so that it's going to go up to the front also when it's dry, and pull it up like that. So you've got a little bit hanging here and a very large one here, and of course we're going to trim that large one off once it dries. Because we're going to end up having 3 coming here, and we're going to have 3 ends coming around, and that's the look that you want. So hopefully you can see how that's going to work. This is why I don't like to glue these together, because then I can spin these around once everything's glued and kind of bend them up and mold them with my fingers. So you can hold that until it dries. I'll continue on. Hopefully I won't mess up what I'm doing here by doing it before it's dry. So again, repeat it 2 more times. So it's reasonably dry on the bottom, and you've got the 3 long pieces that are coming through the center. That's what we're going to snip off right now. And cut it approximately right here. You just want these to be noticeable when they're going to be in the center of the flower. And this is where I just take the end of my tapestry needle and I just separate them. Loosen them up a little bit so they're not all in like in one strand. Now you can take some of the purple stamens and bend them up. Move them around, or you could leave them flat. I bend them up. Mine needs to dry a little bit more. But anyway, you can see that that's kind of from the side what you want it to look like. Looks a little crazy, but that's what that flower looks like inside. Alright, and now all we have to do is put it into the middle. Add some glue. Set it down in. This is when I usually use that tool. Set it in, and I'm going to probably not mess with it too much more because it's still going to move on me if I play with it anymore. But you want to let that center dry and then come back up and pinch these all together, whatever look that you want. And so truly, if you see, when you look at this one, you can see how easy that was. You can tell that now I made this purple a little bit darker in here with the ink. So you can go and use your own choice on how you want to do them. But that's your blue cornflower for March. I hope you guys will try these. They're really easy. And I will be back with April's in the near future. Thank you. Bye-bye.